So at this point, the residential real estate market in the Bay Area has made an almost 100% recovery. However, the story isn't necessarily the same for multifamily property owners and investors. Now, the reason being is that since the start of shelter in place, there's been a lot of COVID-related federal assistance programs to help tenants pay their rent on time. Now, it's unclear how much longer into the future those types of stimulus programs are going to be in effect. In a moment, I actually sit down with a multifamily and co-housing developer based in San Francisco, and he's going to share with us the type of economic indicators that he's looking at in order to decide certain multifamily investment criteria as well as development criteria. It's a super interesting conversation, so stay tuned. And we are live. So hello, everybody. I am here with the very powerful Matt Ryan, who is the founder of re-viv. He is a local Bay Area-based co-housing multifamily developer. He has extensive experience in the contracting, development, real estate space. So very pleased to have you here, Matt. So let's just jump right in it. I know our timing is constrained today. Yep. So I wanted to just talk with an expert here. So you're a developer, you're a multifamily co-housing developer. What are you looking at right now in terms of macroeconomic indicators to help gauge the strength of the U.S. multifamily housing economy right now?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I got to correct you very quickly, revive, not re-viv.
My bad.
You're good. I had to call you out after, you gave me that awesome intro. It's, I think it's nothing different. And spoiler alert, it's not anything out of the ordinary that I'd say that a lot of developers are looking at. The things that I kind of went through before we were going to come on the podcast was, unemployment. That's the numbers that we've seen in the city of Oakland proper have been exponential. We were at 3.9% unemployment. We're now at 15. Okay. The peak in the 2009 recession was around 10%. Now this is unprecedented times, right? So I'd say that's kind of the first one. The second one is deliveries, right? Like we've been traditionally known as a supply constrained market. Okay. Averaging 2,000, maybe 3,000 deliveries a year at best in Oakland proper. So again, I'm staying away from kind of like broader multifamily market and focusing on, the market that that I'm in. Because for me, unless you dig into broader things of monetary policy and getting into that, potential for soapbox, you really kind of got to dig into your markets. And for us, we're looking at deliveries, supply, right? And there's over 4,000 deliveries, 3,000 in the past 12 months, according to CoStar, in city of Oakland and surrounding areas. They're estimating another 10,000. All Class A product. It's going to be hitting the ground. So most deliveries, I think, in a very long time, maybe decades. So for us, those are kind of the fundamentals we're looking at, because whether we're investing in an existing product and rehabbing it or adaptive reuse, co-housing is a kind of a different segment, but it still falls into multifamily, right? And so for us, given those delivery numbers, we're a little bit concerned, like, are we going to have that level of absorption? And really, is the Bay Area's job market as insulated as everyone thinks it is? We've kind of been invincible from a job growth perspective, but we've also, the reason we've seen such massive rent growth and appreciation is supply-demand imbalance, right? San Francisco Bay Area proper is, I think, 1 in 7. That's one housing unit to every 7 jobs created. 1 in 3 is typically a supply-constrained market. So again, I think those are kind of the key fundamentals. Rent growth is something we're tracking very, very closely. I for one think that we're already starting to see pockets of markets. San Francisco, for one, saw 9% rent growth decrease from Zumper. I mean, this is month over month stuff, right? So we got to kind of average this out over time. But we're looking at these different markets and we're saying, okay, we already kind of knew rents were getting at the threshold. You look at the larger macro data of how much people are paying on rent, how many people are rent burning, which we'll talk about that when we talk about the co-living piece. We felt like we were already hitting a really strong ceiling. And so we're a little bit concerned, like, how do we perform a rent growth? How much runway is really left? How much can people really afford, right? I mean, the Fed's throwing out cheap money, all this stuff, but assets can only appreciate as much as people are willing to pay, right? And so that's kind of the other thing that's really kind of an unknown in all this that, we're concerned about. But, traditionally we're focused on not just central business district, urban core markets, but the flight markets. We define those, that's an in-house term we use. Those are the flight to affordability markets. Those are the pockets of maybe distressed, older building stock, or, a lot of vacant land where there's opportunities and maybe the rents just haven't caught up with some of the surrounding areas yet. So we haven't seen those numbers, rent growth, really come cascading down. But again, 4,000 deliveries in a Class A product, that's going to create some downward pressure.
So, I mean, it sounds like you may be a little bit concerned with the amount of supply that is on the horizon in terms of keeping the rent rates stable as they are. I mean, do you think rents are going to dip in places like Oakland? I mean, they haven't yet, it seems, but I mean, with all this new stuff ready to come online in Oakland, and with people realizing, well, hey, we don't necessarily have to live in these, urban environments. I mean, and then I guess, the other thing I have is just for the existing stock. I mean, it seems like at this point, people are still making their rental payments per month. And a lot of people, from what I'm reading, are saying, well, okay, that's probably a result of these federal stimulus payments that are coming out. But those are set to, expire pretty soon.
Yeah.
I mean, we're still, from what I'm seeing, we still haven't really seen any decrease in rent payments so far. But do you foresee in Q3, Q4, do you think that number can, pull back a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, that's the $1 million question, right? And I mean, of all the questions that have monopolized our conversations, in the last 90 days, that's the one, right? So I'll make a bold prediction here. I wouldn't be on this show if I couldn't, right? I mean, yes, I think they have to be, right? I mean, and it doesn't just, we were already seeing a fundamental shift in our work, in our industries, right? And I think, especially in the Bay Area, part of what made us immune to that is the growth in tech jobs, right? It's unprecedented. This is, really kind of the third industrial revolution, but it's the tech revolution, right? And so, you have all these high-income people making six figures. And I guess the key question is, there's the undercurrent, the renter by necessity class, and, that we kind of service both on the co-living and our workforce housing development. And, is the fundamental weakness that they're experiencing long lasting, and really can that other demographic that was kind of holding, everyone up, so to speak. I mean, with retail being essentially dead on the doorstep, I mean, really, I'm driving through San Francisco and it looks like a war zone, right? I don't know. I haven't been over to Oakland in a while. So this is very anecdotal, but I'm going, hey, fundamentally the runway's running short on stimulus. Reality is going to have to sink in. People are going to have to get back to work. And the key question is, are they going to have jobs waiting on them? If they don't, fundamentally, you have to see rent growth pull back, right? Just because it's a matter of vacancy and it's a matter of demand. And so, and if especially the boys at the top, the Class A, I mean, traditionally, from what I understand, I'm still a young buck in this market. Those guys kind of drop their pants first and it cascades down, right? And so, if I don't know, we've always been very insulated in the Bay Area as far as our deliveries, supply, demand, and balance. Can we absorb it all? We could. I mean, Sacramento's another market we're in, and they're absorbing the hell out of inventory right now. But again, it's like we talk about flight markets in around primary cores. These little zip codes that people are flocking to, the next hot neighborhood. I think Oakland in itself is kind of a flight market, right? People are tired of San Francisco prices. They were already heading over to Oakland. You never saw 10,000 deliveries in the CBD in Oakland ever. Again, someone needs to validate that, but so it's kind of like, again, everyone's flocking to affordability, and does that absorption, do enough people leaving San Francisco into the Oakland and the hills and Berkeley help absorb that inventory? I don't know. Only time will tell. But yeah, to answer your question, man, I absolutely think rents are going to take a serious pullback. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, hurting, who kind of got into, who are plugging in those continual rent increases.
Yes. Okay. So if we are going to shine the light really briefly on co-housing, I know
Yeah.
timing is we don't have that much time left, so I want to just dive into it really quickly.
Yeah.
General consensus is if I'm sitting here reading everything that I'm reading in the news, I'm thinking, how the hell is co-housing going to even survive? I mean, it's close quarters. You're with a bunch of different people that you may not know. I mean, to me, it sounds like, well, who the hell is going to want to do that? But
Yeah.
from what I'm hearing, like co-housing applications from certain providers are soaring. And it still seems like co-housing fits that missing middle for that rent tier that you really can't find unless you have roommates. So tell us what your thoughts are. I'm really curious to know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me validate what you already said first. So when I spoke to our operators, coming up to the podcast, we've been in close talks with them because we were hearing the same thing, right? The
Yeah.
co-living is kind of dead on arrival. Increase in delinquencies, increase in non-renewals, application volume falling off a cliff. All that happened in the first 60 days, right? And that happens in multifamily, right? That happened in multifamily as well.
Yeah.
Now, gross net rent collections have been good on a lot of the higher tier product, but no one tracks the lower class B and C stuff as well. Now, to your point, this is where it gets fun, right? Now, these guys, the two of the operators that we've spoken with, they're growing their portfolio by 50% over the next 6 months. Okay. Their
Nice.
lead volume is already picking back up. So if you consider the fact that co-living was already a very, very strong like microcosm of a market, like you talk about the adoption cycle, it may even be, early adopter stage, right? So this thing's really just starting to take off. We're still early on the bell curve, and that's proven, right? They are seeing an increase in operational costs. That goes without saying. But, so are hotels. I mean, they're kind of a hotel, student housing. Like these are markets that are already experiencing this and going to be preparing for it.
Yeah.
At it going to a macro level, like straight macro level, again, affordability, right? So I'll rattle some stuff off for you very quickly that we did on our co-living presentation, because I think it really speaks to like what is the long-term demand and why, right? Why is co-living going to last in this next growth period, in this next cycle? Urban suburban captured over 30% of household formation in the last recession. It's going to happen in this next one. And the reason why, Brookings Institute report, the last cycle, 72% of the jobs were created in cities over 1 million people. Okay. What does that mean? It means that cities pump out jobs post recessions. And this isn't like some, mad scientist theory. This is fact. And this is history, not just through the last 10 years, but decades. Right. So what's happening in cities? Again, rent affordability, especially in the recent graduate class. The majority of the co-living demographic is 22 to 34. Okay. Millennials were already on their way out. They're graduating the burbs, we're having babies, we're making families, all that fun stuff. But there's 45 million Gen Zs that are coming in over the next 10 years. I mean, could be even bigger than the millennial generation. They could eclipse 60 million, right? They're facing the same hurdles. They're paying 30% of their rent in the 14 largest metros. They're saddled with an average of $30,000 in student debt, okay? In addition to that, women are now achieving the majority of college degrees, which means family formation's delaying. People are staying in the renter pool longer, okay? Anecdotally, one of my co-living operators told me they've had some recent applications where people literally said to them, I'm lonely and I'm tired of being in my apartment by myself, and this just looks like a good fit for me.
Yeah.
And so, you got, we're offering rents 15 to 20% below the market rate rent for a studio. You got turnkey amenities. Some of these guys are integrating tech platforms. So the way that you're accessing the rental market, is just easier and more simple than, say, the Craigslist model, right? So with everything I said, I mean, I think you can understand where my heart lies and where I think we've got a lot of runway in co-living. I think we're just getting started. Just like we talk about flights to affordability, this is a flight to a product, right? This is a flight to something. This marketplace has already happened. Craigslist market, we live in the city, you've lived in the city. This is a marketplace that already exists. It's just being monetized by co-living operators, adding a superior product. And so for me, it wasn't like this handy little trend. It was something that was already transforming and still has a ton of potential growth just by way of a new generation of population coming in.
Yeah, I think that this is really the first real test for the co-housing model, because definitely, for the last few years, the skeptics that I've run into have always thought, well, when we run into a recession, when we run into something, co-housing is going to be the first type of housing to get hit, and that scared a lot of people away from the model. But I think is kind of what you're saying and what we're seeing out of some of your operators, etc. It seems to be pretty resilient so far, and if people are doubling down on their developments, etc., and if the numbers that they're reporting are for real, it seems like it's going to be here to stay, and the market that it serves is not shrinking. So it seems like it may have a bright future ahead of it.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll add is, the one thing that co-living really does differently, than the traditional take 4 or 5 bedrooms place, divvy it
Yeah.
up around a bunch of people, is the amenities.
Yeah.
And the one thing about millennials, we were kind of forced into the recession. We didn't have a lot of options. It was either mom and dad's house or an apartment. Gen Z is much more amenity based. They're the people that have literally accessed everything by their phone since they came out of middle school, right? And with co-living, the fact that you can deliver a superior product with these amenities, with grocery to stored, groceries on demand, having them delivered, cooking, networking events, it's a superior product is really what it is, right? And so I think for us, part of what you're seeing is there was a lot of developers just kind of mashing density, and calling it co-living. And I still think it's going to be a game of who provides like legitimate, solid product in the marketplace, right? Those are the people that's going to be the co-living. And I think the ones who fall are the ones who try to, skimp on amenities and just kind of, get that density and get that, price per square foot up, versus really focusing on how important it is to have a viable living space, and something that feels comfortable to people that keeps them around.
So we've reached our limit. So Matt, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to be putting the link to re-viv in the YouTube description. This is going out on my newsletter pretty soon. Thanks a lot for the discussion. We heard some bold prediction from the very powerful Matt Ryan. So Matt, thank you very much, and we'd love to have you again soon. So
thanks for having me, bud. Take care.
See ya.